Hello, I'm Professor Good, and in this video, I'm going to discuss how to complete the lab portion of Biology 110. So this is a lab science class, therefore you have a lecture portion, which I've previously discussed, and a lab portion. You will complete this at home using the lab kit that you purchased from the ICC bookstore and the resources either at the bookstore or on Canvas. So let's begin of where to find the lab information. So we're going to go to modules because that's where all of the content is. And we're going to scroll down to lesson 1. But before I do that, we have a lab manual that is going to be where all of the lab exercises. So if I use the word lab exercise or lab manual, it is the same thing. The lab manual is just one document that has all of the lab exercises. And then within each individual lesson, I have each exercise. So you can do whatever works best for you as far as, whatever's easiest. The lab manual, depending on the semester, may be found in the lab kit, but will more likely be found in the bookstore for purchase. So open your lab kit, which I'll talk about. And for fall of 24, the lab manual should be in the lab kit, but moving forward, you'll have to purchase that separately. If you don't want to purchase it, which I highly recommend, you could print them from these modules. So the lab manual is here. And then as I scroll down into lesson 1, we have where it says lecture and lab resources. So I've already described the lecture resources. And where it says lab exercise is going to be each individual lab for each lesson. So this is lab exercise 1. And in lesson 2, here would be lab exercise 2, etc. So again, whatever works best for you. So I'm going to show you lab exercise 1 and the lab manual. Again, same document. So as I scroll through here, we're going to get, there's our table of contents, to lab exercise 1. So I'm going to do a fairly thorough job because this is the part that's the most confusing to students on how to complete the lab exercises, specifically lab exercise 1. And then the same kind of idea will apply for labs 2, etc. So at the beginning of each exercise, you will have some study guide questions. So remember, this particular section is a lecture and lab section. So what that means is you will have a lesson quiz, which will contain 10 questions over the lecture portion of the course and 10 questions over the lab portion of the course. So these questions do not need to be filled out and turned in. However, they're going to guide you on the main things that you need to know for that portion of the quiz. So again, for the quizzes, all you can use as far as resources is your brain. But if you study these ahead of time, you're going to be successful on the quizzes. All right, so as I scroll down, the next thing you're going to see is this yellow box. And you will see that yellow box for every single lab. And the yellow box is important because this is going to be telling you what you need to submit for your lab photos. The lab photos are how we determine that you're actually participating in the lab. So here is kind of a snapshot of all 4 photos. So each lab has 4 photos. Each photo is worth 1 point. And then within the lab exercise document, you will see these again. So they're just kind of a summary here at the beginning, and then you're going to see them again. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we progress. There'll also be kind of these green boxes that tell you the required materials that you need for each lab. So lab 1, all you need is to purchase the lab kit, and that can only be purchased from the ICC bookstore. And you're going to do inventory on that lab kit, which we'll get to. So now we're into the instructions, which you can read. And just a little reminder that there are 10 questions from the lab on the quiz. So this is going to be some lab policies, and I'm going to hit the highlights. You can read it in depth, which you should definitely do. And these are important to make sure that you're being successful in the course. So lab attendance and active participation in the lab at home is required. Just like there's an in-person lab if you were taking this class for lecture and lab in person. So the in-person labs meet for about 2 hours a week. And depending on the lab, this may take you, an hour at home. It may take you several hours at home. It just kind of depends on the lab. If you get stuck, you can always email me, but all the information that you need is in this lab exercise. All right, so here's the mention of the photos. 1 photo per point, and there's a total of 4 photos for each lab. They need to be in one file or document seen right here. And the best way to do that is to use ilovepdf.com, which I'll talk about a little later, to merge all of those files. It's free. You don't need to log in. You don't need to sign in. You can just upload those photos. Occasionally we understand that life happens and, you forget or you're too busy or you ran over with work, etc. So we allow you 2 extensions of lab photos. This is separate from the lecture tickets. So you have 3 lecture tickets for assignments, but you may not use those tickets for lab photos because we're giving you 2 extensions off the bat. So what the extensions provide is a 1-week, basically an extension from the original due date. So if the photo is due on a Friday, you've got until the following Friday to submit those photos. In order to use those extensions, you need to email me and be like, hey, photo 1 or lab photos 1. And it's not 1 per photo. It's for all 4 photos. Then you would email me and I would make a note that you used one of your extensions and then you'd still have 1 left for later in the semester. As long as you submit the photos within that 1-week extension, your lesson quiz score will still count. However, let's read this as a really important statement. After the 2 extensions are utilized, so you've used the 2, then any subsequent missed photos, meaning other missed photos, will receive a 0 and you will get a 0 for your lesson quiz score. So even if you got like an 18 out of 20 on that lesson quiz, without photos, those scores don't count. I will manually go back in and adjust them to 0s because that's part of the participation for this course. So make sure those photos are getting in. Now again, if you submit it within that extension of 1 week, and I would do it earlier than 1 week if possible, then your lesson quiz counts. So it's your job to keep track of how many photos you've missed. Anything after those 2 extensions you'll see as 0s for the photos and 0s for the lesson quizzes. So that will add up pretty quickly if you stop submitting photos. So make sure you get those in. I provide feedback on the photos. So go to your grades and I will actually say like, great job, or this was incorrect, or don't forget to do this, etc. So those are important to look at in the grades on Canvas. So that way, if you're doing something incorrect, that you can correct it for the next round. All right, so let's keep going. If you have a family member or a friend or whoever that you are both in this course and you're like, we want to do the labs together, that is fine as long as you each have your own lab kit. So you've each purchased a lab kit and you are each submitting your own photos. So you're doing your own experiments, submitting your own data, and not everybody's going to have the same data. So it becomes pretty obvious right away if you're just using one kit and one set of results. So please make sure you're doing your own work, even if you're working with somebody else. And if you're submitting the exact same thing, you will both receive 0s for all of the photos and the lesson quiz, because that's considered cheating. All right, so how do we submit these photos? And what are the requirements? So as I mentioned, PDF is the file version that I need. And I want 1 file per lesson, so per week usually. So how you do that to merge them, if you don't already know, is just go to this, again, free website, www.ilovepdf.com, and it will merge all your photos. It's super easy. You save them, you upload it to Canvas, which I'll show you, and then you're good to go. It is 4 photos per lab, and they're each worth 1 point. So if you want all your points, which of course you do, most of them are going to need your name and the date so that I know that if you've taken this a previous semester, that you're doing the work again the semester which you're enrolled. If a selfie is required, so most labs, not all of them, but most labs require 1 selfie. Again, that varies slightly. If it requires a selfie, I need to see your whole face. If you need to take more than 1 photo to get everything in, that's totally fine. So if you're like, I need a selfie with my lab kit and with this piece of paper, you can submit more than 4. You're not going to get points deducted as long as all the components are there. If you are required to have a selfie, but you don't include it, that particular photo is 0 points because the selfie is part of the requirement. You should have all the components, which I'll show you as we progress. It needs to be uploaded correctly. I need to be able to read the file. Sometimes I go to grade them and the file's empty. I usually will send you an email and just be like, hey, the file's empty. Can you upload it? Make sure it's not upside down, no mirror images. If I can't read it, whether I can't read your answers or I can't see it, I actually grade for accuracy. So if it's super blurry or your handwriting's not clear, it's a 0 because I need to be able to read it to grade it. Any missed photos, incorrect answers, missing components, I do deduct points if things are incorrect. But I give you the right answer, which is the good news. So you have that to study with for the quiz. So everything you're going to do is going to be at home, and the lab kit will provide the majority of what you need, but there may be a few labs in which you need to purchase some things. For example, lab 3, you'll need an egg and a potato and a few other items, and we can't put that in the lab kit because they would spoil. So there's a few things, and I'll give you reminders on Canvas and within the labs that you have plenty of time ahead of time to purchase those. Okay, so I'm going to keep going down. So after you have completed the lab photos, you're going to submit them onto Canvas, which I think I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to submit them right now. So you've done the lab, and now you're going to click, we're back on Canvas, you're going to click on lab photo 1, and it has the due date and the number of points. And it has a little blurb about, reminder. Here's, if you're a Google person, which you can use Google, I give you a way to convert those to PDFs. There's a little example and just a little reminder, no photos, no lesson quiz score. And then if you scroll down, you can see the rubric. So this is the grading rubric that I use for each photo. So it tells you like what happens is how many points are deducted depending on what you forgot, etc. All right, so we're going to click on Start Assignment. And then all you do, super easy, is you choose your PDF wherever you saved it. It's helpful to put it where you can find it. So choose your photo and then click Submit, and then you're good to go. So now your photo's been submitted and I can grade it. So super easy to get those photos uploaded to Canvas. So in addition to the lab photos, you will also most weeks have a virtual lab. This is not the entire lab activity. This is part of the lab activity. So if all you do is the virtual labs and no photos, you'll get 0s for everything, which is going to make your grade go down really quickly. So that's just one component. So the virtual labs are located on Canvas. And here is the virtual lab. It is 3 points. And as you can see, you're just going to click on that link. It's going to take you to Connect. You're going to follow the instructions, and that is separate from the lab photo. So there are 2 different assignments for the lab portion. If you were taking the course in the face-to-face setting, they also have the virtual labs, and they also have lab activities during the lab, and they get points, and they also have a lab quiz. So it's pretty much the same. It's just a matter of you're doing this at home. All right, so let's go through this first lab so that you have a general idea of how this is going to work. So here's the first thing you have to do. So kind of a signal that a photo is coming is you'll have a name and a date at the top. And so for this one, you're just going to fill in the questions after you have read through the lab manual or lab exercise. And I did the first one for you. So it's an example. So how will you show that you're attending lab? Well, you're going to turn in those lab photos. And then the second one, how many lab extensions or photo extensions are allowed? 2. So you're just going to fill in the answers. And there's several ways to do this. You have a physical copy of the lab manual. So you can just write your answers in. take your phone or whatever you're using to take pictures, take a picture of this and upload it. That's one option. If you like the digital version, you can use the doc on Canvas for each individual exercise and you can type in your answers. It's helpful for me if you type them in red as seen here because it's easier for me to grade them. That works, and you can take a screenshot or a photograph of your computer screen. Or if you're fancy and you have a digital device with a pen, you can write in your answers. So I don't really care how the answers are in there as long as they're legible and correct. So at the end, you're going to know, oh, there's that yellow box. So this is photo number 1. So you're going to answer those. It's actually questions 1 through 9. Sorry. Answer questions 1 through 9. And then you're going to merge that with the other photos, which we'll get to. So we get to the next photo coming up, which is the lab kit inventory. So you've bought the lab kit. There's an inventory checklist, which I'm going to get to on the next page. And you're just going to put a check mark by all the things that are present. If you're missing anything, check in the column that says needed. If anything is broken or you don't have the right number, let me know. And which I'm going to tell you how to let me know. And we'll get it sent to you, or you can pick it up at ICC. So this is photo number 2. So this is one you might need to take more than one photo to get everything in. So what you need is this inventory list. This is a selfie, so your entire face, and your lab kit opened. So if you need more than one photo to get everything in, go for it. If you're missing something, it's super important that I know that you're missing something so that way we can get it to you so that you can continue to complete the labs on time. So we have a link, and I've got it in the first week and the second week. You're going to click this little link here in Canvas, and then you're going to fill out this form appropriately, and we will get things sent to you. But if you don't do this in time, we can't guarantee that you get the items in time. So make sure that you do that inventory so that if you are missing something, we can get it to you. So that's photo number 2. So let's keep scrolling. So this one, you're going to watch a little YouTube video. This is on safety and record true or false. This is part of the lab activity. This could be on the quiz, but what you're going to notice, it's not a photo. So you should do it. You should study it for the quiz, but you're not going to submit this. I do not need every page submitted. That's very cumbersome for me to have to scroll through 20 plus pages. So we're going to keep going. So that one wasn't a photo, but do it anyway. So the next photo as we go, yellow box, is the lab contract as far as safety. So that says, yes, I read the rules. You're going to initial each line 1 through 10. So put your initials and put your name, signature, etc. Take a picture of that and you will submit it with the other picture. So let's keep going. Now we get into the scientific method. Read all the parts, okay, in detail. Scientific method is a big part of the first quiz. So let's keep going. And again, there's a name and a date. And as we scroll down, there's probably a photo box. Yep, there it is. So this is the last photo. You're going to complete those questions in the box where it says answer. So questions 23 through 40. And you're going to merge all 4 of those photos. And then you're going to submit that, as I mentioned, on Canvas. So there's more to do. So do all of it. Even if you're not submitting it, any of this could be on the quiz. So even if it's not a photo, it could be questions on the quiz. So let's keep scrolling. Okay, so then you're going to talk about a little experiment you're going to do the next week, which is just some food and some pH. And at the very end, which is what I wanted to show you, is a little checklist. When you're all done, did you submit your photos? Did you complete your virtual lab? Did you study and then take the quiz? If there's something coming up that you're going to need other items, I give you a little reminder saying like next week, you need these items. So it's 1 from this category, 1 from this category, and 1 from category 3. So let's say at home you had a carrot, that would check off the box for category 1. And then you had a tomato, that would check off the box for category 2. And you had an apple, that would check off the box for category 3. So 1 from each. That's for lab 2, but make sure you have that ahead of time so you're prepared. So I hope that was helpful on how to complete the lab portion of the course.